Hey you guys, and welcome back. As you ladies know, we frequently have males to come here and say, you're just bitter because you're single. You're just bitter because you're not married. You're just bitter because no one wants to marry you. Blah, blah, blah. And I even got into a conversation with a younger male who was saying, "Oh, well, you're this age and you're not married, but I'm younger and I'm married, so you can't provide relationship advice to black women because you are not currently in a relationship." And this is the thing that gets me. And I'm going to be showing you a video at the end of my commentary that's going to drive my point home. Because it used to be, in history that the male was more valued than the woman was. It was a part of a woman's value for her to be able to say that she is married and claimed and has someone's last name. Now, the man may be up in there beating her and treating her like a dog, but according to society, part of her value as a woman was tied into whether or not she had a man. The problem with that is that in this current day and time, it has become even more deadly for women who align themselves to some of these whorish men. Now, I was looking at a news story on TV, and they were talking about the Zika virus. Now, when I initially heard about this virus, they were saying, and I thought they were saying that this virus was passed along, through mosquitoes and stuff like that. But I saw one story that was talking about telling people how to prevent the spread of the Zika virus through sexual contact. So, ladies, if that's true, you have even more to worry about in your dealings with these men, with these whorish men. And I don't want to just put this on black men because you have to be aware of this from all men, right? You can't just look at black men and say that it's just them, because it's not just them. And let me tell you how I know. Let me give you an example of how I know. On my other channel, I had one of the MGTOW men who is a homosexual, and from reading some of his comments, I would venture to guess that he is a white male. And the reason why I would guess this is because what I have noticed throughout my days at college and then working in corporate America is that white people in the LGBTQ community tend to be very racist towards black people. So you will hear some of the same racist stereotypes coming from this community that you hear from heterosexual white people. But his premise was black women were primarily being infected by black men who target weaker males in prison and rape them. And then those men that are raped or doing the raping are coming out and they're having sex with black women. Now, I don't deny that there are women who are being infected that way, but he completely and totally overlooked the black males who are willingly having sex with black men, with other black men, and also with white men. Because a lot of these men who are going back and forth between men and women, they're going to be having sexual relationships with white men and with black men who identify as being gay, which is at a higher risk of contracting the disease. So I just wanted to make this video to make sure that sisters stay on their toes. Now, my advice, even though black men like to make fun of black women who are celibate and who are have decided to not engage in any sexual activities with a man until she is married, I know that a lot of them like to make fun of black women like that, but my advice would be to remain celibate until you are married. And even still, you still have to be aware of what's going on around you and who it is that you are dealing with. I don't care what color he is. I don't care what his racial makeup or his ethnic background is. I don't care. If you're going to participate in sexual activity with him, he needs to be wearing a condom each and every time. Even with you wearing condoms with him, you still need to be having a STD test every single year. And he needs to be doing the same. When you are dealing with a group of people who feel like their need to satisfy their sexual desires outweighs them being protective of their own life, then you have to do everything that you can to look out for you. At one point in time, and I don't know if they've done this already, but at one point in time, they were considering no longer making it a felony for people who have HIV and AIDS to not disclose their status to their partners. I hope to God they haven't done that. And, I hope to God that they don't ever do that. Because even though people who have HIV AIDS are living longer, you still have a whole slew of other things that will be going wrong and happening along the way. And so if someone knowingly lays down with someone and, knowing that they can give this person this disease, then they should be punished for that. That's just my personal view. You don't have to agree with it, but that's what I believe. So with all of these other illnesses and diseases that can kill you, floating around and popping up, every day, sisters, I want you to be diligent. I want you to be careful, and I want you to value your life. And I want you to value the lives of your daughters and your female relatives to pass on this kind of information to them. Women need to be looking at this situation and looking at these men the same way they would look at someone who they know has a gun or a knife, and even though they haven't threatened them with it, you know that they have the capability to use it to harm you. So you're going to be alert and aware. You're going to keep your eyes open, your ears open. You're going to be watching them to see, if their behavior towards you changes. It is just that important. You know how parents tell their kids, to be careful of the company they keep? Because some kids have been killed because they've been hanging around the wrong type of people who they thought they were their friends, or they've been in prison for long amounts of time for stuff that they didn't do. They were just hanging out with the wrong crowd. So the reason why parents tell their kids this is because when you're young, you don't really know these things. So that is a lesson that those kids should be and need to hold with them for the rest of their life. That is advice that you carry with you for the rest of your life. It doesn't just apply when you are young and hanging around other little young people. It applies in your adult life as well. And not just in your friendship relationships, but in all relationships. You need to be aware of who is around you and who you allow in your personal space, regardless of what kind of relationship or friendship they're trying to have with you. Especially when you are going to allow someone to get that close to you, in that way that you don't allow everyone else to get close to you. So you guys, I'm going to play you this clip, and I want you to pay close attention, right? And I'm hoping that this, again, is going to spark some conversation amongst, black women, and not only black women, but also between black women and black girls, so that, the new generation of girls who are coming up is going to have this information before they get tricked and before they are preyed upon by the predators who, prey on young girls because they feel like they don't know this information. So take a look.
When I was first diagnosed, it was November 21st, 2007. I found out 3 weeks before, which was the first week of November, that I was pregnant with twins. And so I made a prenatal appointment with the doctors. By then I was living in South Carolina with my new husband. I was a newlywed, and went to an appointment the 21st, which was the day before Thanksgiving of that year, and went in for being dehydrated. I kept throwing up and just not feeling well. And when I went in, she had already did labs. So she said, okay, well, I have your labs back. And I said, okay, well, is everything okay with my labs? And she said, oh yeah, everything's fine. We just have one problem. And I'm like, okay, what's the one problem that we have? Is it diabetes? Because I've had gestational diabetes with my 8-year-old. She's like, well, no. Can we ask your husband to step out of the room? I'm like, okay. So she asked him to step out. She basically just looked at me and said, you tested positive for HIV. And I kind of got into a blank stare. I looked over at the wall because that was really the only thing I wanted to focus on. I didn't want to look her in the face. I didn't want to, I was completely in shock, along with not feeling well. And she said, well, do you want us to bring your husband back in the room? I say, sure, bring him back in, because guess what? If I'm HIV positive, he's the reason why. So she brought him back in the room, and I can remember that day as if it happened yesterday. He just looked in shock when she told him, and it wasn't a shocked look as if, oh, she could have given me HIV. It was more of a look like, wow, she found out. I left him on January 1st, 2008. February 14th, actually the beginning of February, I was sitting at home and I was looking at the news, and there was a story that came across where there was a homosexual couple, an older male and a younger male. The older male had knowingly infected his younger male partner. And at that moment, I found out that knowingly infecting someone without disclosing your status to them was a felony crime in the state of Florida. So what I did, I immediately got on the phone, called the sex crimes unit at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, spoke with the detective, and I let him know what was going on. He let me know, okay, well, get us a police report, which I did. And once they got their police report, the first thing they wanted to do is to get a recorded confession from my ex-husband. So I'm like, okay, how am I gonna get a recorded confession, And he's all the way in South Carolina, here I'm in Florida, So at this time, he's begging me to come back to South Carolina to stay married to him. So, okay, let me use this to my advantage. So over the course of the couple days, I kind of played it off. Yeah, I might come back home, and yeah, I miss you. Yeah, I still love you, knowing good and well I absolutely, positively did not love him anymore, and I was not going back. February 14th, Valentine's Day. His Valentine's Day gift from me was calling him with the detective on three-way, with the recorder on, while I'm asking him every question that the detective wanted me to ask. Because before we did the three-way, I said, okay, well, what do you want to know? I said, okay, well, now I got to figure out how am I going to get these questions to him and him answer them. So I called him. I'm all sad. I'm like, okay, well, I got to go see a psychologist, and they gave me a questionnaire, and I need all these questions answered so they could treat me. Whoop-de-woo. He answered every single question. He answered questions about how he was diagnosed, when he was diagnosed, how long did he know, which he had known he was positive since 2002. He answered questions about, did he know how he got it, which he didn't know. And by then I had found out that he was not only sleeping with other women, but also other men. And once I got the recorded confession, they issued a nationwide warrant for his arrest. They went to South Carolina, they arrested him. Took months, but they extradited him back to Jacksonville. He pled guilty. He got sentenced for the maximum in the state of Florida, which is only, I hate it, but it's only 5 years in the state of Florida. He got 6 months served, so he only had to do 4.5 years. And he's scheduled to get out March of next year. March 2012, he's scheduled to be released. A lot of people feel like, oh, if I avoid this person because they're positive, then it won't happen to me. Don't think that just because you're in a monogamous relationship or you're married, that it can't happen to you. I was in a committed marriage. I wasn't in a relationship. I wasn't dating. And here, this guy that I've known for 5 years is positive, didn't tell anybody, and gave it to me. I mean, it can happen to anybody. And it probably has happened to a lot of people who just don't even want to know if it's happened. They assume, okay, I'm with this person, I'm married, it's not going to happen. So just understand that it can happen to you just as easily as it happened to me.